At the time of recording, Trizooka has been dominant in the meta for a very long time, to the point where tournaments have had rule sets where they outright ban it. Except, no they don't. They outright ban splattershot and leave all the other Trizooka weapons intact. So this got me thinking, what about splattershot makes it far and away the best abuse of Trizooka, and in the process of making this, it just kind of somehow turned into why shooters will always be at the top of the meta, and to understand this, I first need to talk about specials. Specials are designed to be the strongest part of a weapon's kit. They hold an immense amount of power because they are supposed to be your ultimate ability. And just like ultimate abilities in other games, you can't just use them whenever you want. You have to spend like 40 seconds just to get a single use, or 5 seconds for your degenerate weapon. While how they impact the game can vary, it stays true that they have a massive impact when used. Trizooka can wipe an enemy team before they can react, cooler buffs your entire team to an unholy degree, and when you use it, Hammer will kill you. All very impactful effects. And okay, yeah, Hammer is the worst special, sure, but if we take a look at what Hammer is supposed to do on paper, it has a large one-shot hitbox, a large 3-shot AoE in rush mode, lets you move through enemy ink, has insane object damage, it can destroy any and all projectiles it comes into contact with, including inkjet and Trizooka shots, and when you're done with it, you can throw it away for a one-time use Trizooka shot. The Trizooka shot also has insane object damage. On paper, Hammer is actually a pretty strong special with a lot of room for skill expression. Unfortunately, in practice, you die the moment you use it, but not everything's going to be perfect. So yeah, in practice, not every special is going to be as strong as each other. Some are always going to stand out as being stronger or weaker than the rest. Right now, for example, Tactical and Trizooka are on a whole other level compared to everything else. And because specials are, again, by design, the strongest part of a weapon's kit, it makes sense that when a meta forms, it will centre around the strongest specials rather than the strongest main weapons or subs. Right now we are in Cooler and Trizooka meta, but before that it was Inkjet meta, and before that it was Crab meta, and before that in the test fire we were in Cooler meta again. Even going back to Splatoon 2, we ended that meta with Missile meta, and let's not forget, the history of Splatoon 2's meta is also the history of Stingray and Armor. Primal evil has endured over the ages. So how does this make shooters an inevitability in a metagame? You can probably see where I'm going with this since I've been rambling about specials for God knows how long, but stick with me for a bit because I want to build a team comp. Let's say, hypothetically, that you wanted to build a team comp. You have 3 one-tricks who only know how to play pencil, bucket and brush. Brush is there because I'm part of this team, we're teammates now. And you have a 4th player who is equally skilled at every weapon in the game. No one is ever equally skilled at everything, but for the sake of simplicity, this guy is. He's also a perfect sphere and moves through a vacuum. You know that Trizooka is a strong special in the meta right now, and you want this guy to play a Trizooka weapon. But which one does he play? Well, there's a lot of Trizooka weapons out there, but let's narrow it down to 3 options. That's splattershot, squeezer, and carbon, and see if we can figure out which one is best. Don't worry, this will be quick. Probably. Let's start with Carbon, and looking at its stats, first things first, this weapon has short range. It has decent paint, honestly, and a quick and reliable one-shot combo. Obviously, a weapon with these stats is geared heavily towards sharking as a win condition. This is very powerful if played around correctly, but Carbon isn't going to find much time to be painting for its Trizooka, and the paint it does output is pretty low and in a short range. It's a good weapon, but if you want Trizookas, Carbon isn't your pick. Squeezer looks more promising as its short range mode has decent paint output, but if you look at the rest of the weapon stats, you'll see that it has a really strong, perfectly accurate, quick, long range 3-shot kill. Squeezer is a really strong fighting weapon, and as I'm sure you can imagine, it wants to play towards that. This means that it'll be in its low paint, long range mode more often than not. You can go out of your way to farm for Trizooka, but the main weapon itself doesn't actually want to. So much so that it's widely agreed upon that Foil Squeezer is actually the better kit. So then let's look at Splattershot, and looking at its stats again, it's not really pulled in any particular direction. It has a decent fire rate, decent paint, decent DPS, decent frame data, decent mobility. Its stats are all average. Some slightly better than others, but nothing that stands out as a defining feature of the weapon. No defining strength, no defining weakness. So how does this weapon get its direction? Well, it's through its kit. Splattershot has the ability to become whatever its kit wants it to become. If it wants to, Splattershot can spend all game farming for its special, and that doesn't really come into conflict with any particular aspect of the main weapon, unlike the other options we discussed before. And so if you want to add a Trizooka to your comp, you're pretty much always going to default to Splattershot, because Splattershot is the best main weapon at being a Trizooka. This idea is true of all shooters to some degree. Sure, some more than others, but especially with the short range shooters, this is why shooters will always be meta. Why there will always be a Splattershot, Splash or Zap or 52 Gal or Jet Squelcher or 96 or Nova at the top of the meta. Okay, maybe not Nova, but if a certain special is strong in the meta and you want to slot it into your team comp, it's a lot easier and a lot more effective to slot the shooter with that special into your comp. If we're sticking with Trizooka as the example here, there are a lot of unique and interesting weapons that have Trizooka, but when all I'm looking for is a Trizooka weapon, I don't care about those unique and interesting things, I care about spamming Zooka. And so shooters, especially the short range shooters, by not having any particular standout strength, it allows them to focus on entirely that. This is a bit of a double-edged sword though. A lot of shooters basically live and die based on the relative strengths of their kit. I mean, when was the last time you saw a jet squelcher? It was likely in Splatoon 2 where it had missiles and ray. You don't see jets nowadays since it has rain and vac. This is also best seen by looking at the NZAP family in Splatoon 3. The grey Zappinator is easily one of the best weapons in the game right now. Cooler is the strongest special in the game, and its sub is also pretty good. If you want to run Cooler, and let's be honest, every team wants a Cooler right now, and you don't want to run a pencil or a heavy edit, Zap is your best option. On the other hand, the orange Zappinator is the middest weapon of all time. It's good, don't get me wrong, but why would you ever want to run the weapon? For its decoys? But decoys are kind of also mid right now, so you don't really have a reason to pick it. If we ever find ourselves in a world where the exploding friends are turbo meta, you bet Orange and Zap will find its way to the top of every tier list. But until that day, it's stuck being mid. I've mostly been talking about this in a context where synergy between the specific special and its user, as well as the context the special is being used in, it hasn't mattered too much. In the example team comp I was using earlier though, I was trying to lean towards splattershot being the best Zooka weapon for that comp, and if I didn't include brush, it probably would have been. But because I did, Tent Umbrella stocks are rising. The synergy between brush and tent is so good that it's worth the loss in Zooka output that comes with running a tent. Synergy between the special and the main weapon does actually matter, and to illustrate this, I want to take our minds back to Splatoon 2 and talk about Stingray. So for those who didn't play Splatoon 2, Stingray is an infinite range special that can hit through walls and is just overall OP. You ideally want it on a long range weapon like Charger or Heavy, since they often stand far back, putting them in a more ideal Stingray spot, and their distance from fights also keeps them safe so they don't die and lose their special randomly. So while there was a short range shooter with Ray, the 52 gal deco, it didn't see any play. Your go-to Ray users were Splat Charger and Heavy Splatling, and Jet Squelcher, which is also a shooter, but that's not my point. But actually, I kind of lied, because just to prove the point of this video further, 52 Deco did actually see play as a Ray user over these other weapons, but this was more so in Japan and specifically for Rainmaker. Unlike Zones, Rainmaker is all about quick movement, quick paint, quick kills, and 52 has all of that, perhaps a bit too much of that. You don't want to run your long range anchors with Stingray because, well, it's Rainmaker. But you want Ray because Ray is OP in Rainmaker. So your best Ray option is 52 Deco. You could use Slot Machine or Squeezer, but 52 is a lot easier to slot into your team comps as a Ray weapon. I could use this to talk about kit synergy and how it surpasses meta viability, but this video is long enough as it is, and I think I'll pass for now. But with that, hasta la vista.